So our final demo and our final discussion for the day is on the AWS Resource Explorer, multi-account search. So let's bring on our next guest, Jillian. Sound like a plan?
Let's do it.
All right, Brent.
Hello.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, we're excited to have you. Our first question to everyone is did you bury any turtles this year?
I did. I did not. I did not. No pets dying in the family, thankfully.
Well, apparently they live, Brent, and you just dig them up in the spring. I don't get it.
I don't know that my cats would share the same fate if I buried them.
Oh, all right. Yeah, no, that's a good point. But hey, you know what? Who doesn't like cats? So that's a different thing. Yeah, I think I like cats more than turtles, to be honest. Sorry to say.
They're much better at cuddling.
It sounds like, yeah, you can't search for turtles, but you can search for your stuff in AWS with Resource Explorer.
So I suppose if you had an application named Turtle, you could search for it. Sure. We're not going to find actual turtles.
So tell us about it. What is it?
Yeah, sure. So Resource Explorer launched November 2022, just before reInvent. And really the charter of our service is to provide you, the customer, with an easy way to find what resources you're using at AWS. We launched this reInvent November of 2023. We launched support for multi-account search. So that search is no longer account bound. It was regional, so you could search across any region and service. Now you can do it across the entire AWS organization. So we're super excited to share with you how to do that.
That's so useful.
I think that's right. This is awesome. All right. I think it's demo time already. I'm excited. So Brent, are you ready to go?
Yeah, let's pull up the screen.
All right, here we go.
Cool.
All right. So once again, for those who joining us, this is a look at what we call the AWS Console here. We should have introed that when we had Andy on earlier as well. And the console is kind of the easy web interface that you interface essentially with the cloud, right? So simplistic way, and everybody, we talk about the console so frequently on here. I think we forget to mention, it's an easy way to get started here. So why don't you walk us through how we do this?
Sure. I heard Art particularly likes the console because it doesn't have to do much scripting in it, so it's a nice safe place.
But I once again want to blame the moderator for the situation.
I heard he's a console fan too.
Okay.
Cool.
Everyone's a console fan.
Yeah, exactly. All right, cool. So I guess some kind of pretext. I am in the management account of this hypothetical AWS organization. For those of you who aren't aware, an AWS organization is a collection of accounts that can be managed and controlled essentially centrally from your company or organization. So I'm in the management account, which is the primary decision maker for the entire org. Which is a requirement for the first couple of steps that we're going to go through in this process. We're going to navigate, quickly to the Resource Explorer console itself. This is the console landing page. It just kind of outlines some very basic overview of the service. I would love to hear in chat, by the way, how many of you have actually used this at an account level. How many folks are looking forward to being able to do it across being able to use it across an org.
So drop in the chat to Brent's point. Drop in the chat if you've ever used either the console or the AWS Resource Explorer, which I think it seems like there's a couple people. Del Turge has some strong thoughts on the console, so I'm going to go with there's quite a few console users out there. Let's say. All right.
Yeah, Resource Explorer is great in the console. Like Andy said earlier, you can obviously do anything you can do in the console with Resource Explorer and the CLI or SDK, but we really shine in the console on trying to make this resource discovery piece really simple.
Just want to say, Leah Norelia is a console fan as well, and I dig the panda. I'll just say, who doesn't like a panda? Okay, go on. Sorry. Go on.
Cool. So I'm going to jump to settings, and you'll see in the settings for Resource Explorer that we have this, let's call it a wizard, to walk us through the 3 steps that are needed to get this set up in the organization so this simple resource discovery can happen. you can see the first step here is enable exploring with AWS organizations. And I'm going to click this button up here, which says configure Resource Explorer in your organization. Again, I'm doing this from the management account. And there's two steps here that need to be acknowledged. The first one is the enablement of trusted access. So trusted access is an AWS organizations term that basically means you are granting Resource Explorer, the service, permissions to understand the construct of your organization. So we understand what accounts are in which OUs. So when we provide multi-account search, we can accurately provide accounts over which you can search. So we're going to do this checkbox. I allow AWS to create a service-linked role. This is what AWS services, in this case, use customer credentials to crawl to get this information from AWS organization. So we need your permission to do that. And the second one is to select a delegated administrator. This is a recommended piece because AWS best practice really says that resources and like day-to-day usage shouldn't really occur in the root account and the management account. So I'm going to select, and you can feel free to elaborate on that if you want, but I'm going to select a delegate admin account. You can see this is an account I've already created in the org. And so I'll get that one going and we will move on to the next step.
Yeah, I think this is perfect. I also think this is a great example. You mentioned, AWS best practices. I would highly encourage everyone to take a look at some of those best practices. We have those online. In particular, I would give a plug for the AWS well-architected framework where you can kind of review best practices. You can take a look at it. And for those that are not entirely sick of me, I am doing an entire discussion on the AWS well-architected framework on Mondays, and you can take a look at the AWS training and certification channel. So we're doing that for the next 5 weeks. So have some fun with it. Join us. But anyhow, it's a great way to learn some of those best practices and steps here as well on a very kind of serious note. Not just to plug the discussion on Monday, but I think it's pretty important as you walk through these best practices. Okay, Brent, let's
Absolutely.
Oh wait, Brent, one quick question that came in from the chat. So Caffeine Cafe says, can this replace AWS config? Which it wouldn't, but maybe to add on this question, is there any integration with AWS config in terms of the overall understanding of what's running in the account?
There's no backend integration with AWS config.
Okay.
AWS config does lots of things that Resource Explorer doesn't do. When Resource Explorer, let's call it, indexes all of the resources in your account, right? We go out and gather all of the resource information and put it into a central place that lets you search for it. What we're indexing in that is really at its core, the ARN, so the resource name, or the resource identifier for any resource type at AWS, and any associated tags with that resource type. What we do with that information is surface it, at least in this instance, in a search API that allows you to rapidly find something specific. Think about it like searching your email inbox. You can say, I'm looking for an email from Art, right? Named operator. I want an email from Art. It might pull 400 emails if you've received 400 emails from Art because he likes to share turtle videos. But at least you can get the collection of emails that it is. What config does, on the other hand, is significantly more complex. It's verbose, deep resource metadata. It's configuration change in history. That sort of stuff Resource Explorer is not going to solve for customers. That is firmly in config's space.
That totally makes sense. Good question, Caffeine Cafe. Yeah, keep going, Brent.
Cool.
Yeah.
So now that we've done trusted access and created a delegated administrator, we'll see we have a new flash bar at the top that says, great, good job. Trusted access was granted. And the next step here on the top right says create configuration on quick setup. You can see that it's also reflected down here in the workflow. So I could disable trusted access or delete or change the delegated administrator. But we're going to go into step 3, which is create configuration on quick setup. There's a couple different ways you can go about doing this. We recommend Systems Manager Quick Setup because what this does for us is it allows the management account to set up a configuration that auto deploys to every single account in the organization. And what that really does for us is, because of the way that multi-account search is built for Resource Explorer, we're not gathering all of the resource metadata from all over the organization and putting it into a single account and searching into that account. We're doing something more like federating that search out and saying, of all of the accounts in your organization that have Resource Explorer turned on, what results match from each of those things? And so for multi-account search to work truly, you need what I would call a local configuration, an account level configuration for every account in the organization.
Really cool.
I think this is really cool because there's a lot of people that want to do this kind of search, by the way, that are out there. Number one. Number two, to be able to do the search across accounts is, I think, key, especially if you're an admin or a moderator, what have you. I think it's pretty important. Sorry, and I think, Brent, you were going to say something else.
No, it's perfect. For those of you who aren't familiar with Systems Manager Quick Setup, it's a very, especially if we're talking, I saw a lot of console responses when we said how many folks love the console. It's a very console-friendly way of creating what are behind-the-scenes CloudFormation stack sets. And so if you've ever set up Resource Explorer in your account specifically, like an account level, just one account, this window is going to look very familiar. The only difference is when we select the aggregator index region, and for those of you who aren't familiar with Resource Explorer, we have two types of indexes. We have local indexes, which means the resources in that region, the metadata is stored in that region. And then you can elect to aggregate all of those local indexes into one additional region, any region of your choosing, to say, if I want to do multi-region search, I just search that region, and it has a replication of all of the resource metadata. Because this configuration doesn't know or can't guarantee that Resource Explorer has already been set up in some of the other accounts, it allows you to override essentially the account level configuration. Because again, I'm doing this from the management account, right? In this account, I have the authority to act on behalf of the organization. I can say, if any other aggregator indexes exist already, tear them down and replace them with the region that I've selected. And that's going to be really important to make multi-account search work completely. So for the organization piece, I can target the entire organization. I can say, yes, deploy this everywhere all at once. I could select specific OUs, so I could just deploy this in my test OU if I wanted to make sure I liked it before I turned it on everywhere else. But for this purpose, we're going to do the entire org. The summary just basically says, here's what we're going to do. We're going to spin it up everywhere, every account, every region. Your aggregator that you picked is US East 1. And again, we're going to use roles in order to get all of this information. So I'm going to hit create here. And then we're going to do a little bit of TV magic because this process can take a little bit of time.
This is our version of a cooking show, right?
Right.
Exactly right.
And I also say it's lunchtime here on the West Coast, so it's perfect to have some more food analogies for me.
Perfect. I'm going to jump back to Resource Explorer now. So I'm all done in Systems Manager. And I'm going to refresh this page just so I can update this with where we are. And so we've done trusted access. We've selected a delegated administrator. We've done our quick setup configuration. The next thing we need to do now, and the final step, is we need to create a multi-account view. Views are, so indexes are the collection of this metadata, right? That's what we've been saying all along. But indexes aren't accessible to users in your organization or customers or anyone, really. They are just the collection of that metadata. The way you get access to that metadata is through what we've called a view. And a view is the permissions construct that says, I, user, have permissions to search for and discover X in my index. And so when you create these views, because I'm in the management account, and again, the delegated administrator account will have the same privileges here, I'm going to create a view called multi-account view. And you can see this account scope line says I can search for only resources in this account. So if you're just doing it in a member account in your org, that's the only option you'll have. Or I can say, I want to do organization-wide resource visibility. So I'm going to create a new view that does this. Again, for this organization-wide resource visibility, I could do the entire org, so at the root, or I could scope down a view to just dev accounts and these views are shareable via a service called Resource Access Manager, otherwise known as RAM. And RAM allows resources to be shared securely between accounts in an org.
I love the level of specificity that you can get here. So you can try it out in a dev or prod account. And then even when you get here, you can also take a look now, which organizational structure am I interested in? You can look at root, everything. Or in this case, I believe you set up dev, prod, and test, because I've seen people with other kind of wacky names that they've created too, right? But not wacky, but
you could have an org structure. Yeah, you could have an org structure where like the first OU is Leonardo and the second one is Michelangelo, and then you could you could just devote a view and an OU to a specific team, and so only Team Leonardo can see Leonardo's team's resources. And so that's definitely a way that you can go about doing that.
Feels like we're back to
the chat. Oh, there's a question in the chat that's related to this topic.
Sure.
Caffeine Cafe was asking, is there an approximate cost per account or like per or OU?
Yeah, there is definitely an approximate cost per account for basic resource search, which is what we're showing today. That approximate cost is 0. So Resource Explorer is at least with our current feature set, is absolutely free of charge for customers.
That's exciting.
All right.
Yeah,
that's even better.
Sure.
By the way, someone mentions they dispute that RAM. They think that they believe it's just random access memory. I just want to say that's what it is too. But
I plead the fifth. I was not a part of that naming design.
Hey, all right, let's go.
Cool. So we're going to select the root. I'm going to select the aggregator region again, which we did because I want this to be multi-region search. You can either in this filter include all resources or include resources that match a specific filter. This is super powerful. We launched at reInvent last year, this past one, the My Applications
2023.
Yes, the My Applications dashboard. Dr. Vogels announced it on stage. And one of those things was the applications operator. So if I have done that with the My Applications dashboard, I could actually just say, I want to scope this view down to only application Leonardo. And what that means is when I share this view out, the only resources that are visible in the view are ones tagged application Leonardo. And so for finance or developers or security or whomever needs to see that application's resources, you can provide them a view of those resources that isn't like over provisioned or over scoped for what they would actually need to do their jobs. I don't actually have that application set up, so I'm going to do all resources. I will not skip tags because tags are very important, and I will talk to Andy about that later. And I will create the view. So I have this multi-account view, and I'm going to go to explore resources in it. And you can see already that the crawling process, this back-end process of collecting resource information has started. Now, this is not immediate. It takes minutes, 2 hours to do this. But we can already start to search and see incomplete results, but we see results from whatever account 4900 in my organization is.
Yeah, and part of this is based upon the size and the number of accounts that you have, and there's a lot of variables here. So, I don't want anyone thinking that some of the time that it takes to come up with the answer has anything to do with necessarily the resources here. It's just the largesse, if you will, of the accounts is kind of is also determining the depth with which it has to crawl through.
And I've done a lot of things very quickly here, right? I have granted that permission to the org structure, so we have to get the org structure, we have to deploy it in all the accounts, then we have to crawl in all the accounts. So yeah, there is a stepwise solution that has to happen here. This is just when you turn it on. Once it's on, this is a non-issue anymore. So yeah, that's really it. So once you're in Resource Explorer, and you want to search for resources, it's really as simple as saying show me resources with a tag environment equals prod, and any resource tagged environment equals prod would show up in the search. And again, because this is across my org, it would be in any account that is visible in this view in my organization.
All right. So today there are none. By the way, I do want to give a shout out. Default Queen wonders if we're live. I just want to say, hey, Default Queen, we are most definitely live here. So we are indeed live.
We
Okay.
are. You can see that more resources are piling in.
There you go. There are the resources.
33. We'll just keep refreshing.
Yeah. Brent, clarifying question. So the query, the format, you had like certain keywords filtered. So it's not SQL syntax you're writing. It's okay.
No, and this is when I mentioned earlier that Resource Explorer is very console friendly. This is not SQL. It is keyword-based search. So I could just write like unicorn, and any of my resources that have the word unicorn anywhere in them are going to show up here. So we can do wildcard search. We do also have, if I click this info panel here, we have named operators. So you can search for things very specifically. Again, the email inbox reference comes through a lot here. I could type art. I could type from art. I could type contains art right in my email inbox. And so for Resource Explorer, we tried to mirror that. I can type unicorn. I can type account ID with my account ID. I can type service EC2, and I'll get very specific things back depending on how specific I am in my query.
Totally.
Yeah, I think that we have one more, I think, really valid question here as we wrap up is there a way to share the search with non-admins? Would it just be an IAM role change or anything? And also, is there a way enough to dump the search via CLI?
Yep, great question. So there are a couple managed Resource Explorer roles. There's an admin Resource Explorer role, a read-only. So anybody with permissions to essentially call the Resource Explorer search API, which the read-only one does, could search this view, assuming either they were in this account or it was shared with them. So that's first. You can see in the top right here, we have export resources to CSV. Let me refresh. So in the console, I can export these to CSV. In the CLI, it's up to you, right? You could export them as a JSON or whatever you would like to do. With one caveat, this is a search API. It is meant to find specific resources. It caps at 1,000 results. So you're not going to be able to enumerate your entire resource inventory with this today, but you can say, give me all of my EC2 instances, tag prod. Assuming there's less than 1,000, you can absolutely save those and take them downstream to other workflows.
All right. And someone also answered online, they showed some of the default views that are available as well. So one of our helpful moderators that are out there kind of help drop some of that in there as well. And I'll also mention that for those who don't know, but I think most of us who are tech folks do know, I mean, CSV is essentially an Excel file for those familiar with that. So you can download it, use it in Excel even, and do a search. And as we were talking off air before we did this, you could even put together even a pivot table or something like that to work through this data even more, to create graphs and diagrams and the like. So I think there's a lot of amazing things that you could do as well here.
Yeah, not only that, one more thing in the kind of user-friendly, since we have such a console-heavy crowd here, we are integrated with Unified Search. So now that I have this all set up, I can type EC2 subnet and the search bar at the top of the window, and it will also pull back resources for this organization.
Nice.
Yep.
I love the multi-pronged approach here. That makes it even more. It makes it even easier to use. So, yeah. Well, this has been a fun demo, and I think yet another example of working backwards from customer requests to simplify here. For customers to use it. So I want to thank you, Brent, for coming along today to showcase that. Anything else that we may have forgotten that's key? I think we covered most everything, but let us know.
No, that's it for me. I would say it's 52 degrees here. So if you're waiting for warmth to dig up your turtle, now's probably the time.
This poor turtle.
Are you sure? I mean, we don't know. We don't. I don't think any of us know enough. I mean, I think we should stick with mutant turtles, probably a little better. Okay. By the way, somebody offered some other commentary on CSV, which is true. I just didn't want to walk through it, but since someone else, Solway, did. CSV is a comma separated value, so you can also use a basic text editor. I am not unaware of that, but just for purposes, of this information, I just kind of assumed that you would want to do some work with the data, and that's why I suggested the Excel. So a couple of people, thanks very much for the stream. Thank you again for joining, and thanks, Brent, for joining us today. And we will look forward to the next time we have you out here. And have a great afternoon.
Thanks,
Brent.
Brent.
You're welcome. Thanks.